I'd like to have you all join me in welcoming Linda Wagner, who's a former CanScribe graduate. She'll be doing our webinar today. Since she graduated in 2013, she's worked for M-Modal, who is now known as Acuity. I hope I said that right. She's also worked for other large companies like Nuance and NTS out of Australia, as well as having private clients of her own, where she transcribes medical legal reports for clinics in Ontario. She also was an EA, which is an educational assistant here at CanScribe, before moving on to become an online instructor, designing her own courses such as Master the Expander, which she's going to tell you a bit about today as well. She's also in the process of creating another program designed to help MT-HDSs build a transcription business from the ground up, which would be very, very interesting. Linda is very passionate about people being successful in this industry, and she continues to support those who seek creative ways to be successful, but most of all, productive in their careers. That's super important these days. So welcome, Linda, and I'm going to go ahead and switch presenters and turn this over to you.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing your time with us today.
Thank you for having me. As a 2013 grad from CanScribe, it's really neat to be able to come back to share my knowledge and my passion, which is the all-elusive text expander. So I'd like to welcome all the... Oh, goodness. Are you guys hearing a huge feedback?
I am.
Yeah, that's something else. Let me hang on here. Let me turn down my gain, see if that helps.
You're okay.
Yeah?
I'm going to mute myself, and hopefully that was it. We can't see your screen yet, though. Okay. There we go. I see you now. Perfect. Are you able to talk, Linda? Hold on, folks. I think we're just having a glitch here. Okay. I can't hear you, Linda, no.
Oh, goodness. Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Oh,
Perfect.
Okay. I think I hit the wrong button. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no. I'm glad you started early. No worries at all.
Yeah, that's right. Is everybody else okay and you can hear me?
Pretty much. I think we have a few folks who are still trying to get in, but go ahead.
Okay.
We're fine.
Okay, awesome. I just want to say hello. Thank you so much for having me. You know, as a 2013 grad from CanScribe, it's really neat to be able to come back to share my knowledge and my passion, which is the all-elusive text expander. I'd like to welcome all the students who've joined us today, and I'm really super excited to be here. I'll just take a few moments to kind of tell you a little bit about who I am and what I do. I began using the expander as a student and honed that skill really well before I entered the workforce, because I saw the potential of what the expander could do for me, just in terms of saving research time, increasing my productivity, and just overall achieving efficiency in what would be my new role as a transcriptionist. Now, I knew well in advance that a lot of my energy and time would be spent learning the platform, and so once I got out there, so I really wanted to have that one skill kind of under my belt before that point. Now, having that knowledge just gave me the confidence I needed, and I thank my lucky stars that I was proactive enough. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Something happened. It zapped.
Yeah.
Probably the internet.
Okay. Yeah, just so having that knowledge just kind of gave me the confidence that I needed. And I just thank my lucky stars that I was proactive enough to really get on board with the Expander prior to obtaining my first job. So 7 years later, my transcription business is going strong, and I'm still a huge avid user of the Expander. Now, because I saw the value of it as an amazing productivity tool, I knew what it could do for others, and so I decided to create an online course on how to master it so that other transcriptionists, new and old, could excel in the field of transcription too. So for anyone interested in going above and beyond the basics on how to use an Expander, I'll be going over some of the course details at the end of this webinar, and I'll provide you with a coupon code should you decide to take the next steps in your learning. I also really encourage you guys to check out the free 12-part video series there, as it'll give you tons of information and just hopefully answer any remaining questions that you might have about the Expander and how it all works. So I think we're all good to go, and we'll just get started. Okay. All right, so I know you're all probably at different stages in your course, and some of you may have been hearing or may just be hearing about the Expander for the very first time today, and some of you may have already gone through the Pi on Text Expanders using FastFox, which is the text expander program that CanScribe provides for you to learn on. FastFox is a good little program to learn the basics on how entries are added and how shortcuts are made, but it will be up to you to decide whether you want to invest in a more comprehensive expander, such as instant text or shorthand, as they do provide many other functions that you don't get with more basic programs like FastFox. All in all, though, regardless of which expander you choose to work with, it remains to be the #1 most important productivity tool to have in your toolkit as a transcriptionist. And there just cannot be enough said about how important of a role it plays in making your job as a transcriptionist easier or easiest. In terms of whether to use one over another, I found that medical transcriptionists in particular just tend to gravitate to more complex third-party expanders, such as instant text or shorthand. And I think it's because we have more complex needs than someone who might be doing general transcription or even legal transcription, for that matter. We need to access a significant amount of specialized information outside of the general terms and phrases. And so it's really important that we're able to access information efficiently and in a systematic and organized manner. Now, one thing I've found is that there really isn't a whole lot of information out there in terms of the different types of expanders, the shortcut methods that people use, or how to manage your glossary. So it's just my hope that the information in this webinar will help elucidate some of those burning questions that some of you might have about how it all works, what it can do, and just overall where to begin. Now, the way I see it is every time you make a keystroke, you are adding one more penny to your pocket. When you're paid by production, whether that's by the audio minute, the page, or the line, time is money, and everything, efficiency at the keyboard is everything. And so it's really important that you stay ahead of the curve by using tools that will help you work smarter, which in turn will increase your line rate and overall success as a transcriptionist. So
do you have your PowerPoint open yet?
Oh, I do. Oh, goodness. You guys haven't been able to see it at all?
No, we just see your beautiful flowers so far.
Oh.
So you have to share it. You have to click on that share your screen and share that PowerPoint.
Okay, that's interesting. It did give me the option to share, which I thought I said yes to. Can you see my mouse where I'm kind of navigating here?
I can. You're going to go
screen sharing.
Okay. But you have to click on that and then click on the specific. I think we're back to me. You just disappeared. So if you click on the icon right next to the phone, it should open, and then you would select your PowerPoint. But let me turn it back over to you again and see if that helps, okay?
Sure.
Let me just switch presenter again. Okay. And then if you just click on there you go.
You know what? Darn it, I'm so sorry. I see now. I'm going to start sharing. Let's just open that up.
There we go. Perfect.
Oh, goodness. Okay. So my welcome screen, these are the 4 kind of ones I'm sort of going to be mentioning throughout the webinar. You've got Instant Text there. You have FastBox on the left, which is what you guys are going to be using if you haven't already. SpeedType on the right, and down below is shorthand, okay? I'm more familiar with the Instant Text and shorthand than I am the 2 in the middle. And there's your time is money, and productivity is absolutely everything, okay? Just remember, every time you hit that key, you're adding $1 more or 1 more penny in the pocket, really, and it all adds up, okay? All right, so here we are. We're on the benefits of a text expander. Everybody can see me okay and see the screen? Perfect. All right, so I believe there are 4 main benefits to using an expander, and it has to do first with increasing productivity. And we'll be going into all the different ways in which that can be achieved through the use of an expander. Now, another huge benefit of using an expander is that it reduces your research time, because the information that you need to access on a daily basis can all be stored right in the program itself. Now, later on, I'll be showing you 3 different types of searches that you'll most likely be doing, and I'll give you some real-life examples as to how an expander can help with reducing time spent looking for medical messages, medical terms, the meaning of an abbreviation, and pretty much anything you'd ever need to locate online. Okay, another benefit of using an expander is just the fact that you'll have less hair on your wrists and joints, and really you'll be amazed as to how much more gentle typing can be on your hands when using an expander. Now, editing simple things like changing BID to BID with all the periods in between, or inserting hyphens to things like mild to moderate can be very taxing on your fingers and joints. And you'd be amazed as to how many keystrokes it actually takes you to accomplish that manually without the use of an expander. Now, I find it's not so much the straight typing for phrases that makes my hands weary, but rather the fine finger movements that are required when adjusting or making little changes to text during the editing process. And so I'll be showing you some pretty useful ways in which a few of the expanders kind of handle that. Okay, and last but not least, it's how the expander can prevent critical errors. Now, all expanders are going to do the same thing as far as ensuring that any medications or medical terms you've included in your expander are always typed out correctly. But one expander kind of takes that to the next level, allowing you to actually include special notations or side notes to your entries that only you can see, which aid in alerting you to important details regarding a particular entry that you're about to type out. And I'm going to be showing you tons of neat little examples about how all that works too. So I wanted to give you guys a side-by-side view of each of the entry windows, which is the screen and where new entries are created and where all the magic happens. Okay, just so you can get an idea as to the similarities and the differences between each of these expanders. So you'll see that each one has a main screen where the medications, medical terms, and overall phrases are added. So you've got, you know, the larger screens here on all four. This one's a little bit foggy, so however, there are a few differences as well. I should also mention the shortcuts. You know, we've got, it's above the entry screen here in FastFox, and here it's below, and it's the littler fields in here where you're going to add your shortcuts for the entries. But there are a few differences as well when it comes to extra functions that kind of go above and beyond just adding entries. So, for example, if you take a look at Instant Text, you'll notice a few extra options here up at the top. You've got edit, format, command, date, and time, which are all really, really great. I use them all the time. But there's one function in particular that's absolutely invaluable to me as an editor, and that is the command function. Okay, and I'll be showing you a few examples as to what that is and how it's specifically used in editing documents. Now, I really want to remain unbiased, you know, when it comes to speaking about expanders in general, because I only use Instant Text, I can only speak about the mechanics of that particular expander. So forgive me, you know, for not being able to zone into the functions specific to FastFox or any of the other expanders that I've included in this slide or any of the others. But my hope is that by the end of this presentation, you'll have gained enough information to go on in regard to the use of expanders as a whole. So now that we've had a chance to see the different entry screens, I thought I'd show you what the main screen interfaces look like in both FastFox and Instant Text. Now, if you take a look at the Instant Text interface, you'll notice that it actually docks directly onto the bottom of your word processor, and in this case, it's MS Word. And you can see, you know, I know it's a little bit hard, but you've got two green symbols here saying, yep, I'm docked and we're ready to roll, okay? That way, you're able to get a complete view of your entries as you type the shortcuts onto the document. So here you can see that when I type COPD, anything under that shortcut, so to speak, is populated in the window below. And I only have to type the number of the line belonging to the entry that I'm needing in order to type it out, making it quite easy to locate what I need without needing to know the exact shortcut that I've assigned to it. So there's your COPD here. I've typed it, it's on the top, but I've also got expanded versions of the original. So boom, as soon as I type up COPD, I don't really need to remember the shortcuts I've used. It's important that you add them properly, but basically if I want to type out COPD exacerbation, I just would type the COPD and then 2 because it's on the second line, and boom, there you go. Now, one thing to mention here is that after typing any shortcut, you're going to add a semicolon, which is the magic key that expands your shortcuts and types the entry out onto the document. So in Instant Text, we call this the expansion key. However, I'm not sure what key other expanders use for their expansions. Something tells me that the space bar might be used with shorthand, and I'm not sure about FastFox. Audrey, can you expand on that?
I think they do use the semicolon as well.
Oh, okay, perfect.
A lot of them do use a space bar. Yeah.
Okay, I love the space bar because my pinky hits that really, really well. It's just kind of ingrained in me. I know that if you move, say, from shorthand to from shorthand to Instant Text or FastFox, other expanders that use the space bar, people very quickly find that it's just it's a nice change using that semicolon key. All right. So one thing to consider when choosing an expander is whether it comes with whether they come with pre-made glossaries, such as the ones here in InstantText. Now, if you go down the list, you'll see one for dosages, drugs, lab values, etc., and they all contain a multitude of entries that you're able to access right away, as long as you've activated it onto the main screen interface right here on the right. Okay, and that's done by double-clicking on any of these glossaries, which automatically adds them to the glossary list here. Okay, and at that point, you can then add new entries to them by simply highlighting the word that's on your document, and then using a keyboard shortcut, which automatically opens up that add entry window that I showed you earlier, and the text will automatically be added to the glossary, and it'll assign a basic shortcut that you can change if you want. So with that said, when looking at InstantText, you have the program docked to the bottom of the document. All your separate glossaries are visible on the right-hand side of the interface. So there's no guessing when it comes to adding new entries or accessing them when needed. So here you'll see the 5 different glossaries that I use the most. The first one on the top list is called MedStart, and that's one of the glossaries that comes with InstantText, and that's what I add pretty much everything into that has to do with, my medical terms and general phrases and things like that. The second one is my medication list, and that's JDL3. InstantText comes with one, I think they call it drugs. And I keep all my medications, dosages, dosing schedules, everything into that. So when somebody is dictating a report, and I usually keep it on MedStart to start, the first one. And then when they go into the formal medication list, boom, I just switch over to my JDL3, and I have all of my medications there. I like to keep them separate, so it's not, so all the medications are kind of bogging down my main glossary that I put everything else into. The next 2, which is line 3 and 4, these are, different accounts that I work on, and, I like to create new glossaries for them specifically, so I can put specific doctors in there or clinics in there that belong to that particular account. And then, of course, my surgical, and that one kind of includes a lot of different surgical tools and procedures that I only need to access when doing that particular type of report. So to cycle between the different glossaries is really easy. I just need to use the keyboard shortcut for InstantText, and I can kind of switch back and forth as needed. So what's in a shortcut? Now, this is an example of what not to do. When creating entries, many people use what I call the cookie cutter method, which is using the first letter of each word, okay? As you can see, the more entries that you add that contain the same 2 or 3 letters, the more you end up with a massive list of repeats. And when it gets to that point, the expander is no longer functional, okay? You can see that I pulled my interface way down to the 12th line, and I can tell you it goes well beyond that. I usually have my expander sitting on the 6th line, and I never have to go below the 3rd or the 4th entry to get what I need, okay? If I have to go beyond that, I'm doing something wrong, and it's time to kind of revamp the way in which I'm saving my entries. But that's where your shortcut method comes in, and rather than just using the main, the first letter of each word. Now, the shortcuts that we ultimately decide upon is largely dependent on how we personally process information, and can be done using a very easy to remember and systematic approach, which I'll also be talking about a little later on in the presentation. So one thing to make sure when you're choosing an expander is that you have the ability to back up your glossaries to either the cloud or some other external device so that it can be loaded back onto your computer should you need to do so. Now, some companies provide platforms that have built-in expanders, and the thing to keep in mind is that with those, you may not be able to transfer those kind of glossaries from one computer to another or back them up to an external source if you ever need to, say, upgrade your new computer or format your hard drive. Now, the other downside is that you risk losing everything you've saved into it when a new version of the platform comes out. Sometimes this happens, sometimes it doesn't. I think it depends on the kind of platform that you're working with. Now, but more importantly, though, is the fact that when you end up working for another company that uses a different platform, or if you acquire your own private client down the road where you might be typing in a Word document, you'll end up having to invest in a new expander anyways because you'll no longer have access to the one that you were using. And so you'll have to recreate your glossaries all over again, which is a massive undertaking, and all the time and effort that you've expended in adding those entries will be lost. And last but not least, built-in expanders from editing platforms are also known to be quite basic, and so they may not be equipped to handle the job quite as effectively as a third-party expander would. So the three key components to success, which is efficiency, proficiency, and organization, is something that I cover quite extensively in the free introduction part of my course because I truly believe that they are the most important skills to have in order to be successful as a transcriptionist. Okay, so efficiency refers to how skilled you are at the keyboard, and I believe that text expanders play a huge part in this, not only from a speed point of view, but accuracy as well and proficiency. And so with an expander, the margin of error is minimal. Okay. So the second biggest factor is how proficient you are as a researcher and how long it takes you to locate information, such as the name of departments or physicians, the meaning of an abbreviation, or how cancer staging should be typed. And so I'll be showing you lots of different examples as to how the expander handles this kind of information. And the third biggest factor is how organized you are in storing information so it's always at your fingertips. Fishing for information to get details on things like account specifics or templates, they can eat up an awful lot of your precious time, and so using an expander is a very efficient way of storing those kind of details so that you can always keep your fingers at the keyboard without having to stop and sift through a bunch of folders or PDFs. Again, I'll be going more into detail about that later on in the presentation. So a little bit more about what keyboard efficiency means to me, and that is first and foremost reducing the use of the mouse. So examples of this are things like using the mouse to make your way around the formatting options of a Word document or an editing platform whenever you need to format a heading in bold, italicize it, or use a different size font. Now, for certain, if you're using an expander that has the capability to include the formats that you need for each heading, this task will no longer be required. And so any special formatting requirements will automatically be included right into the headings that you add to your expander. As you go about building your expander, the need for Google searches will be greatly reduced as well because you'll have the information stored right there in your expander. Now, keeping your fingers as close as you can to the home keys will keep the typing process fluid and consistent without a lot of stop and goes. Okay, using keyboard shortcuts to make your way around a platform is essential to being efficient. And it's also important to get used to the keyboard shortcuts in your expander. So adding entries becomes like second nature. Now, using an expander that has the ability to add commands or macros is key to efficiency when editing a document, and so I'll be showing you how my expander performs a task like that. So So I cannot think of a better way to show you what kind of productivity I achieved than to bring up my productivity log in Instant Text. Now the left-hand column here shows you how many keystrokes I saved on this particular day. This is really outdated, and I'll tell you that this number, on that day, I saved 6,600 keystrokes. I'll bet you it's well beyond double that because, you know, 2 years later, I'm using my expander even more so. Every day you're entering, you know, adding new entries, and so your productivity just keeps going higher and higher. Here on that day was 28%. Okay. It's pretty crazy how many keystrokes I saved over a longer period, like a longer stretch of time. Here it's 89,000. The last time I checked was a couple days ago because I was a little bit curious, and it was almost at the 2 million mark. So again, I mean, we're talking, it was a year and a half time span. So that is massive, right? When you take that productivity gain of 28%, that's all going in your pocket. Okay. So the second biggest key component to success is how proficient you are as a researcher and how long it takes to locate information. Now you have your internet searches for medical terms, abbreviations, lab values, etc. Then you have your EMR, the searches that you make through the EMR system or the transcription platform to locate the names of departments or physicians and whatnot. And then you have searches pertaining to the account that you're working on, such as how they want headings formatted or what dangerous abbreviations they don't want you to use. And so in order to get that information, you're usually going to spend some time going through various documents provided to you by the account manager. There's also correspondence that you have to make to communicate with QA or the account manager in regard to a CC list, say, if you couldn't locate a particular physician to send a copy to, or maybe the audio cuts out and so the report is incomplete. And so I have these types of things added to my expander as well, so I don't have to keep typing out the same message to them every time one of these issues come up. And that's a huge time saver. All these little things make a massive difference when you kind of combine them together. The third key to success as a transcriptionist is how well you are at keeping organized and how you go about storing information so it's always at your fingertips. Now this might include things like templates, account specifics, as I mentioned before, which can eat up a ton of time. Now, later on, I'll be showing you examples on how the expander makes for a perfect storage system that holds information that you would normally have to locate in PDFs or documents such as your account specifics, which again, overall help to conserve your energy and maintain a really good pace throughout the entire documentation process. Throughout the webinar, I'll be showing you examples on how effective the expander can be when used as a data storage system outside of just your medical related entries, and how much more efficient you can become at the keyboard when you have all the information you need right at your fingertips. So in the free introduction of my course, I talk about the biggest misconceptions or myths surrounding expanders, and it's just something that if you go onto Facebook or a forum or something like that, these are the three things that always seem to come up. And the biggest misconception, I believe, is that expanders are more useful in straight typing jobs rather than editing voice-recognized material. Now, I believe this misconception stems from the fact that expanders are just taken at face value. And so people assume that the only function that they have are to expand phrases or medical terms. But to be honest, using an expander to type out long strings of phrases is probably the least thing I actually use it for. And so I'm going to do my best to separate fact from fiction here by showing you all the different ways in which expanders can be used other than just typing out canned phrases and text. Okay. Now, another myth is that a spell checker is a good alternative to an expander and that they can relatively do the same thing. Again, I'll be showing you a multitude of ways in which expanders far exceed the capabilities of those and many other functions that some expanders have that you just simply cannot get out of a simple spell checker. And the last myth is the fact that there are too many shortcuts to remember. If you have a good shortcut method in place, you are golden. Now, 90% of your entries can all be created using one, what I call go-to method, okay? However, more complex entries, such as surgical tools that include like component sizes and different equipment, such as, you would get in orthopedics, say, they require some simple adjustments in regard to the shortcuts that you assign to them. But once you have a good handle on that one go-to method that you use, you can alter the more complex entries using a very systematic approach that's as easy as remembering as your ABCs. Okay. And in my course, I actually go through all the many different shortcut methods, and you'll have the opportunity to kind of try each of them and see what works best for you. We all process things differently, and so a shortcut method that works for one person might not necessarily work for you. And so once you understand the basic concepts as to how different shortcuts are made, you can then begin to revamp them in a way that is easy for you to remember and adjust as needed, depending on what kind of entries that you're working with. So, as I've been mentioning, there is so much more to an expander than just typing out medical terms and phrases, okay? Although it's a very large part of it, but these are, just rightfully just as important, okay? Below are some examples showing you all the ways in which this particular program, which is InstantX, can help to prevent critical errors, reduce the time it takes to hunt down information, and ensures that you're following specific formatting requirements on whichever account you end up working on. Okay, so let's take the first one on cancer staging. Okay, now I've included this one here so I could show you how easy it is to know exactly how to type them out using very little research time. So an example of this would be in where the physician would say something like, the patient has a history of T3N1 right-sided breast cancer. Now, all I have to do is type T3N and boom. Everything that starts with that is populated in my glossary list, making it really easy to know exactly how staging like this should be typed. Okay. The same goes for classifications right below it. But in this entry, I've added a little note that tells me whether it should be typed using Roman numerals or numerics. And that's the one right here. Okay. Notations like these are only something that I can see, and they don't end up on your actual document. They act as flags for dangerous abbreviations, such as an example here on QOD, which reminds me every time I type QOD out to change it to every other day on my secondary account. Now, because I might not work on my secondary account very often, it's hard to remember some of the details, and so anything I'm needing to know that I think that, I might miss goes on that line. And it's super, super helpful, okay? Homonyms and sound-alike words, same thing. It reminds me, don't use complement, use this one, right? This one's the blood test for protein. Okay, saved me, a grammar error. Abbreviations. Same thing. This is really wonderful, okay? So I'll give you an example of this one. And I actually include a really great example in my course, in that free introduction part. So the doctor says, EBB. But you can't really hear if it's EDB or EBB. So you type out EBB, there's nothing there. You type EDB, you're in the middle of a physio or an orthopedic note, it's obvious that this is the one you're looking for. You know, there might be an EBV, but it might not be related to that specific work type. So it's, you know, it saves tons of time in that respect. So I always, with my abbreviations, I'll make this little note telling me what it means, but nobody will ever see that but me. Okay? The account preferences. So again, my secondary account, they want me to change HS to bedtime. And again, huge help. Time saving. You know, the less you have to go to your account specifics and documents, the better off you are. Okay. Sorry, I should turn off all of my stuff. I thought I did. Now I'm getting all these weird notifications coming up. So my apologies if you see them. Okay, so this is where, you know, I've given you a few more examples because this is so integral to how I use the expander, and it's just so important. I've added some of the more critical errors that I can prevent through that secret messaging function. Here you've got EGFR. You know, they're spelled differently. One's in reference to renal, one's in reference to cancer, right? Fentanyl, huge, always measured in micrograms. You know, so if a physician or myself, you know, add, you know, it in milligrams or something like that, that will never happen, you know, if you have a note like that. Glipizide versus gliclazide, super easy to miss, you know, when the doctor is dictating that. So it's there, right? So one huge asset to having an expander with the ability to create commands, which kind of works similar to that of a macro. And it's a function that enables you to record a sequence of keystrokes to achieve one overall effect, okay? So what you're looking at here is a recording of all the different keystrokes needed to do something as simple as adding in the hyphens between mild to moderate. Now, if you were to do this manually, you'd be hitting the control key, then the left key, then the delete key, and so on, which would take anywhere from 9 to 13 keystrokes, depending on how you do that. But once you record the sequence into the command function, it'll only take you 2 keystrokes using the shortcut H2 right here, which to me, I mean, you can call it whatever you want, but for me that means 2 hyphens, okay? Now this is something that's used specifically for editing VR material, and so the misconception that expanders are only useful in straight transcription just is not the case if you're using an expander that provides this function. And basically how I use it is, you know, I'll have mild to moderate on the document. My mouse will be right before that, and I just hit the H2 and then my expansion key, that semicolon, and boom, it automatically just jumps over all the words and kind of adds everything in, and away you go. Okay, takes 2 seconds. Now I do know that the expander shortcut also has this function, but I've yet to check it out, so I can't really comment on, you know, how that function kind of works. So you've seen some examples already on how expanders are absolutely invaluable when it comes to having the information you need right at your fingertips. But think about it. If you do, on average, 40 reports a day, and you take 3 minutes out of your time in each report to locate the meaning of an abbreviation or a correct dosage or the spelling of a surgical tool, that equates to 120 minutes. So that's 2 hours combined in 1 work day. Now, that's a big chunk of time that could be spent with family or getting in on a really good day's work. So a few minutes here and there doesn't seem like a lot, but when you do the math, it adds up. So here is a real example, okay? The dictator says, the patient was prescribed Xarelto 15 milligrams. Okay, so is that 15 or 50? So there you go, back onto the internet, maybe on drugs.com, looking up Xarelto, regular dosage, blah, blah, blah. And the next thing you know, you're on Pinterest checking out the newest trends in interior design or what appy you're going to make for Friday night's party. Okay, so wow, where did all the time go, right? Well, thanks to the expander, there's no need to worry, because as long as you have that entry in your drugs glossary, you should no longer have that problem just kind of getting down to the bottom of it. Okay, you can see here that I've actually added one of those little notes with my entry, just letting me know that it's always 15. You gotta love it. Okay, and Instant Text actually comes with a drugs glossary, which gives you a very good jumping point for adding new entries of your own. Shorthand may also have one. I do know that they come with some, but I wouldn't know how extensive that they are. So a little while back, we talked about proficiency and how long it takes to locate information, such as department names and physicians. Now, to retrieve this information, you might find yourself spending a lot of time searching through the EMR system or the transcription platform, but a large percentage of information relating to the actual account that I'm typing for can be stored in MyExpander as well. Okay, so if you take a close look at the first example on the bottom left, you'll see a rather expansive list of physicians within the hospital account that I work for that just start with the letter B alone. And trust me, that list goes on. Okay, but names are, you know, they're a whole lot easier to locate if you have an effective shortcut that will populate the name at will. So basically for myself, DR for doctor, B, boom, brings all my, B names up. And if the more I type, there they are. They just present themselves, okay? No need to be, searching into the EMR system and trying to figure out how they're spelled and all that. Makes it super, super easy. Long clinic names, such as the one here, okay, would take an awful lot of time to type out in full, especially if you're needing to do that multiple times a day like I am. Okay, usually by the time I type in the first 3 letters of that shortcut, which in this case would be HDG, the entry is already populated. And so rarely do I even have to type out the full shortcut to get to what I need. And that is as handy as heck. So there it is. Okay, so next is the normals, or what some might call templates. Now, the expander can also be used to store templates for more technical reports and difficult to understand dictators that tend to say the same things over and over again, okay? This is a snapshot of a template that I use quite often for a particular dictator that types nerve conduction studies really, really fast. Okay, and the only things that I have to add are my values. So whenever it's dictated, I basically just erase the garble that VR spits out on my editing screen and I replace it with this one. So in editing VR, there's nothing that says that you can't just remove some of the commonly dictated text with a template like this, but just make sure that you still listen intently to the audio, word for word, for all those subtle differences, so you can make any changes to it that you might need to. So just for good measure, here's a before and after shot of a normal that one of my clients commonly dictate. Okay, so on the left is what it looks like before I edit it, and on the right is what it looks like after. Okay, so it's hard to believe that it takes 158 keystrokes to edit something like this, where it only takes me 4 using MyExpander. Okay, so that's a lot of time that's saved just in that one thing alone. Oh, actually, before we go through any questions, would this be a good time actually to kind of show them the platform of the course in case they're interested?
Certainly.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So I'm just going to minimize that and go here. So there's 2 ways you can get to it.
You have to share it, though.
Oh, do I?
Yeah.
Oh.
We'll just have to pick that one.
Oh goodness. Oh goodness.
It's the one right next to the phone.
Okay, so it says stop share screen. Stop screen sharing. Select item to share.
There you go.
Hey, let's do that. I'll just go with my desktop. Can you guys see that now?
Not quite yet.
Oh.
We're seeing the flowers.
Oh. Okay, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Oh, maybe it's this one I have to add. Google.
There you go. Perfect.
Okay, perfect. Yay. Okay, so there's two different ways you can get to it. The easiest way is probably at the very end of the presentation on the Contact Us slide. I have a little link below, and that's got a coupon code for if you're, for anybody interested in enrolling. The other way is just going to udemy.com, udemy.com, and in here, the search field, just type in Text Expander, and it's right here, Master the Expander, okay? So here it is. This is the course platform here. And sorry, I'm just going to reset myself here. So Master the Expander, it's a self-paced online course with over 120 video lectures, assignments, and some of my own personal glossaries that I've kind of put together over the years. Okay, and because it's self-paced, you can access it at any time and just kind of pick up where you last left off. You'll have forever access, so it'll never expire, and there's no deadline as to when it needs to be completed. I'll offer feedback on all the assignments that you do, and I have a messaging center right in there if you have any questions, okay? If you scroll down, it's a little bit, about the requirements of the course and the description of what you'd be learning. Here's the course content. So if you take a look at the first 4 sections, that's all that free introduction that I was talking about, okay? If you go further, there's 13 more sections here. I'm going to be going over like phrase entries, different shortcut methods here, the pros and cons of each shortcut method, unorthodox entries, which is just stuff that would fit in a different category. They might not work with your general go-to method that we talked about, thinking outside the box, and medications, dosaging. I won't go through them all, but this is one of my favorites, diseases, viruses, and syndromes. I know it seems silly, but I'm a bit of a freak that way. I love the glossary that I add, that I include in this course for that. Talks about your commands that we talked about, and glossary management, creating new glossaries depending on, for particular physicians or a particular clinic. Anyway, there it is. So it's quite extensive. It's over 4 hours of video, okay? Now, I use Instant Text for all my demonstrations, and they do give you a free 30-day trial, so you can kind of get a head start on things. But if you decide to go with a different expander, I've made sure to mark out all the different videos that are exclusive to Instant Text, so you can just kind of skip over those ones if you like, such as the program setup. It'll say specific to Instant Text, so you don't have to worry about that. But all the shortcuts, that's universal. No matter what expander you're using, your shortcuts are going to work in that respect. And I just believe you're going to gain a huge amount of information here, and really, as I truly believe that, by the end of the course, you're going to have mastered it. Okay. So that's that, and I'll go back into my presentation, and I guess this is a good time to ask away for any questions, if there are any out there.
Excellent.
Oh, sorry, let's do this. Wonderful. Do I have that up now, or do I have to reshare?
No, it's up.
Oh, good. Okay.
And does anybody have anything to add or any questions? We'd love to hear. I think everybody was mesmerized, as was I, listening to all those wonderful tips. That was excellent. How can you bring up productivity in Instant Text? Indy's asking.
Oh, here, I'll show you. Okay, right here. I'll just open it up. Can you, oh, maybe you can't see it because I don't share it. Can you see that okay? I've just brought up the instant text.
Yeah, I can see it at the bottom of your screen.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if you just right-click on the gray bar on the left-hand side, the productivity is right there. Boom. I have none today because I haven't worked yet. But over time, here's that just under 2 million I was talking about.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, you know, all adds up, right?
It does. It definitely does. And I think all your points are extremely valid. And the thing about using it for editing, I use it for editing day in and day out.
Yeah.
Because we don't know, the company I happen to work for, a full transcription comes up and the next one is editing, and I never know which one. And I just use it on the fly for each one of them, and I could not do what I do every day and maintain that amount of productivity. I just couldn't.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, I've worked without it, not by choice, but
Right.
I was called to my mother's, and I had forgotten to upload my glossaries to it. At any rate, this was a long time ago before I started, you know, uploading them to the cloud and stuff. And I'll tell you, like, if I average $23 to $25 an hour, say, I'm just saying, on that day, I probably jumped down to about 17. So that's huge difference in your take-home pay. And it's because I type the way, it's so fluent for me. I'm typing like as if it's shorthand.
Right.
Okay? Everything's shorthand, like in the old days when, you know, the secretary used to bring their little notepad into the office and she'd write like that. That's how I type, right?
That's it. You're so used to it. And I think a valid point is that you do, just like any tool, you know, if somebody was going to use a paint sprayer, they would have to go out and practice using it before you would take it into your house and just start spraying everything.
Yeah.
You'd have to fine-tune it. So I do think that dedicated time to learning how to use that correctly is also really key, because it is a tool, and some of them are more complex than others.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, honestly, like, I've been using it for years, and there's not a day that goes by where I'm still not adding to it, probably 24 times a day. You never stop learning. You never stop gaining new medical terms. I'm constantly adding to it. But guess what? It is, like I said, like knowing your ABCs. It's so instant. It's so easy once you know the shortcuts to use. When I first started using it, and I just got into my first working with Model at the time, every Sunday, well, throughout the work week, I'd have a little note beside me on my desk, and I'd write down all the things that were, like, you know, messing me up, all the things that were taking up time, eating up my time. And I just kind of make a quick note of that. And then every Sunday, I'd grab my coffee in hand and that little notepad, and I'd take a look at, okay, what is it that the expander can do for me to rectify this? And I'll probably, I don't know, I think 100% of it is pretty much was something that I could either create a command for or, you know, solve using the expander. So the idea is just to be aware every time you work, what's taking up the time. You know, finding a particular doctor that you just always have to locate, but you can never remember how they're spelled, or whatever, anything like that is can be
and
found.
The thing is, if you have looked up something 2 times, that was one too many times.
Absolutely. You know, somebody told me that years ago. They said to me, if you have to type the same thing in one report 3 times, that should be added to your expander, or 2 times, or whatever. If you're repeating anything, that should be added. So,
and Connie, I've never ever had trouble with any expanders being incompatible. Most places do use, as far as I know, shorthand and instant text, most large companies. The weird thing is that some companies, I know NTS gives you tons of classes on it even because they really want you to do that and be successful. And the glossaries, Laura, she was asking a question about if the glossaries are loaded. For instant text, there are an incredible amount of glossaries, as Linda was demonstrating, but you can add to them as well. Things like FastFox, Phrase Express, the more basic ones, they do not have glossaries. You always have to build everything from the ground up yourself. Some people like that. I don't particularly have time to do that because I need to be on the move and typing and, you know, production-wise. But you can do that. They also, those simple programs will not let you import glossaries. But things like shorthand or instant text allow you to import other people's glossaries. So that is kind of nice.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can also take a whole document, a whole PDF if you want, import that in, and it'll pick out the words. To be honest, I've never done it because I want to be specific as to what I'm adding in there, so I don't do that. Because it's going to add everything.
Right.
I don't
whether
really
you like
want to
it
do
or
that.
not.
Yeah.
Right.
But it can do it, you know. It looks as though, unfortunately, somebody's mentioned here that they can't hear anything and that they can only see a piggy bank on the screen and they don't know if it's over.
But everybody said they can hear still.
Okay.
Angela said she could still hear. So I'm not sure what happened to Elizabeth.
Okay. Well, hopefully, you know, she'll have a chance to go over it again.
Yeah. It is recorded. I did my job this time.
Yeah, good. Well, it's unfortunate that at the very beginning I kind of, you know, here I am yakking away and you guys are looking at blank screens. So I apologize for that. Oh my goodness. The information was invaluable, and I've been using instant text for years, and I still got some great ideas today, so thank you. That's awesome. Oh, good. I'm so glad. Yeah.
And Laura is asking if it will catch all spelling errors, even if the word has not been entered. No. As far as I know, I've never had that happen. I enter my dangerous abbreviations as dictated. So if I type QD, it automatically
changes.
Just change it. I don't
to
even
what
have
you
to
want.
think about it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So there was that one example that I said, what was that?
QOD.
QOD should be changed. No, you can actually go one step farther and actually literally every time you type QOD out, it's going to actually
do it. Yeah,
do what you want, change it to what you want. But, you know, I mean, it's really hard to pack all that information into a 1 hour video or presentation. So that's why, you know, it's like a lot of people are like, oh, why 4 hours in an expander? It's like, yes, it's not just about adding a few entries. There is so much more, that can be utilized with it.
And you do want to really delve into it and become really good at it. And Indy, yes, QHS is also for most clients a dangerous abbreviation. So it is available. Instant text is available through, my mind just went blank.
Well, here, just so you know, if you do go here, it's going to tell you where to, is it going to tell you where to go? Actually, it doesn't until you get to part 5. I'm sorry.
Just type in Instant Text Pro 7, and you should find it. It's something Solutions. The name is just escaping me.
Yeah.
Textware. I want to say it's Textware Solutions out of Massachusetts here in the U.S.
Yeah. I mean, I have actually a resource page. I think I've got it in the 3 portion that has the link and then when you get into the actual course, you're going to go through the download, the installation, all the different indicators, you know, how to kind of, you know, change all the different little whistles and bells to work for you.
Cool.
But yeah, darn, I wish I would have had that for you.
No, that's fine.
As far as that goes.
And just you folks, you can email us if you'd like. akirchner@canscribe.com, or instructors, they'll know. And do just give it a thought. That's one of the biggest complaints we hear, is that people find that the typing is exhausting, and this will help that tremendously, and it'll also make you work ready. I really like your plug there that it's really important to use it in the course and get used to it. But that's all of our time for today, and I should let you all go, but I can't thank you enough, Linda, and I hope you'll come back and do this again.
Oh, I'd love to. Thank you for everybody, you know, who's been with us today, and I wish you the best of luck in your studies, and I hope you enjoy it at CanScribe as much as I did.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And you guys have a wonderful day, and thanks again, Linda. Surely appreciate it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm terribly sorry. Somebody just asked about the code, and I was going to mention that. Just make sure you don't purchase it without the code. So the code is, you can just type in student in large caps, okay, if you want to enroll. Yeah, that's it, Audrey. The link on the last slide is a different code, but it's the same price. It just makes it easier for you. Okay.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Wonderful day, everyone. Bye now.
Bye-bye.